I was on my way home from the notary's office, feeling pretty good about telling my husband and mother-in-law that my grandmother had left me 3 apartments and a cabin. But as soon as I walked through the door, I heard my mother-in-law and husband's voices and decided to listen in. I froze, horrified by what I heard. The phone rang right as Keisha Von Hayes finished the latest design mock-up for a client. It was an unfamiliar number. She frowned, but answered anyway. "Good afternoon. This is Keisha Von Hayes." "Yes, I hear you." "My name is Olivia Jane. I'm an assistant for the attorney, Vera Nicole Covington. You need to come to our office regarding the estate of your grandmother, Lydia Stephen Hayes." Keisha froze, the phone pressed against her ear. An estate? Her grandmother had passed away 4 months ago, back in February. The funeral had been modest, just her and the neighbors from the rundown apartment complex where her grandmother had lived her whole long life. What kind of inheritance could there possibly be? "I'm sorry, are you sure? Grandma Lydia had practically nothing, just a single room in a shared apartment." "Ms. Hayes, I can't discuss the details over the phone. You need to come in person with your driver's license. We're open until 6 o'clock. You can come by today." "Okay, I'll be there in 1 hour." Keisha hung up and stared into space. What was going on? Her grandmother had worked her whole life as a simple engineer at a factory, retired on a meager Social Security check, and budgeted every single penny. Her apartment room on the edge of the city was furnished with pre-90s hand-me-downs. Grandma even saved for 2 years just to get a new refrigerator. Keisha got up from the desk and walked through her apartment. It was a small 2-bedroom unit that she and her husband Omar had been renting for 9 years now. 9 years. She stopped by the window and looked out at the gray brick projects across the street. When they got married, she was 23 and he was 25. They both believed this was temporary, that they would save up, buy their own home, and start a family soon. But 9 years had passed. No home, no children. Instead, they had Omar's mother, Vivian Marcia Hawthorne, who had been living with them for the last 5 years after her hair studio allegedly burned down and she was left without an income. "Temporary, of course," Keisha muttered. "Everything is temporary." Keisha shook her head to clear her thoughts. "I need to get to the attorney's office and figure this out." She quickly changed her clothes, grabbed her bag, and left the apartment. On the way to the law office, her memory betrayingly brought up snippets of conversations with her grandmother. Keisha had last visited her in November, 3 months before Lydia Stephan quietly passed away in her sleep. Grandma was sitting in her worn armchair by the window, knitting another scarf, looking at her granddaughter with faded blue eyes, and suddenly she asked, "Keisha, are you the mistress of your own home, or just a guest?" "What?" Keisha didn't understand. "In that apartment where you live, do you feel like it's yours, or are you just passing through?" Keisha laughed it off, dismissing the question and saying something about it being the home she shared with Omar. Grandma shook her head, but didn't push it, continuing to knit. Even earlier that summer, when Keisha came to help her sort through some old belongings on the balcony, Grandma suddenly brought up the subject of her mother-in-law. "That Vivian of yours, she's been with you a long time, 5 years now. Grandma, remember I told you? Her studio burned down, she didn't have insurance, she lost her income, she had to move in with us." "And when will she move out? Once she's back on her feet? She's working at another salon now, saving up for a new place." Grandma scoffed. "She's been saving for 5 years, and she'll be saving for 5 more. People like that never save up, Keisha. They'll always find a reason to stay." "Grandma, what are you saying? She's Omar's mother." "That's why I'm saying it." Keisha hadn't understood back then. She even felt hurt, thinking her grandmother was just getting old and cranky. But now, sitting on the city bus and looking out the window, she remembered the sad tone with which Lydia Stephan had spoken those words. There was no malice in it, only sorrow. The Covington Law and Estates office was located in a tall, downtown office tower. Keisha rode the elevator to the 3rd floor and found the right door. The plaque read, V.N. Covington, Attorney at Law. The assistant, Olivia Jane, a woman in her 50s, wearing a sharp business suit, greeted her warmly and led her into the office. Vera Nicole Covington was a tall, gray-haired woman with intelligent brown eyes. She shook Keisha's hand and invited her to sit down. "Keisha, I understand this may be a surprise. Your grandmother, Lydia Stephan Hayes, drafted a will 2 years ago. According to her last wishes, all of her assets passed to you." "The room in the shared apartment? You mean just that?" Vera Nicole smiled. "Not only that. Please take a look at these documents." She opened a folder and began to lay one document after another onto the desk. Keisha looked at the stamps, signatures, and numbers, unable to believe her eyes. A certificate of ownership. A one-bedroom condo in the North End, 450 square feet. Another certificate? A one-bedroom condo in the downtown district, 410 square feet. The third, a one-bedroom condo in the West Side, 380 square feet. And finally, a cabin plot with a house 50 miles outside the city on a quarter-acre lot. This is some kind of mistake," Keisha gasped. "Grandma didn't have that kind of money. She counted every penny her whole life." "That's exactly why she was able to acquire this property," Vera Nicole gently replied. "Lydia Stephan started buying real estate 30 years ago, back in the 90s when prices were low. She bought the first condo with savings she collected since she was young. She then rented it out, saved the income, and a few years later bought the second, then the third. She purchased the cabin plot most recently, 8 years ago." "But why did I never know anything about this?" "She wanted you to find out only after her passing. She said it would be better for you that way, that it would allow you to make the right choice." Keisha remained silent, processing the information. 3 condos, a cabin. Her grandmother had lived in a shared apartment, saved money on food, and mended old clothes, yet she owned 3 condos. All the condos were rented out, right? "Yes, the income went into an account, which also passes to you. It currently holds about $85,000. The last tenants moved out in January, shortly after Lydia Stephan's passing. The properties are now vacant." $85,000. Keisha grasped the edge of the table. She felt lightheaded. "Would you like some water?" the attorney asked, concerned. No, I'm fine. It's just too much of a shock." Vera Nicole nodded with understanding. Lydia Stephan was an extraordinary woman, focused and far-sighted. She came to me 2 years ago when she drafted the will and explained everything in detail. She said her granddaughter needed a foundation so that no one could ever break her spirit. "A foundation?" Keisha echoed. "Yes, and she also asked me to give you this." The attorney took a sealed envelope from her desk drawer. On it, in shaky handwriting, was written, "For Keisha, open after the documents are finalized." Keisha took the envelope. The paper was thick and slightly yellowed. Her hands trembled. "You can read it now or at home, whatever is more comfortable," Vera Nicole said. "I'll prepare the certificate of entitlement to the estate. There will be a formal fee to pay, but everything else is already ready." Keisha nodded. Her fingers tore the envelope open. Inside were several handwritten pages, her grandmother's familiar handwriting. "My dearest Keisha, if you are reading this, I am no longer with you. Don't cry, darling. I lived a long life and am leaving peacefully, knowing I did everything I could for you. You are probably in shock now by what you've learned. 3 condos, a cabin, money in the bank. You are wondering why I kept it secret, why I lived so modestly if I had all this. I will answer you. I didn't want anyone to know too soon. People change when they smell money, even the closest ones. Keisha, I watched you all these years. I saw you get married, glowing with happiness. I saw how you slowly faded, becoming quieter, less noticeable. Remember 3 years ago when you were offered the job as creative director at that big company? Great salary, career growth. You turned it down. You said Vivian was sick and you needed to stay home to help her. A month later, I happened to see an announcement in the paper. Your mother-in-law was opening a second hair studio location. What sickness, Keisha? Remember when you stopped hanging out with your friends? You said Omar didn't like you staying out late, but he himself went out every Friday night to the pool hall until midnight. Remember you wanted to take those advanced training courses in New York City? Vivian threw a fit, saying you were abandoning your family. You stayed. I saw all of it. I kept silent because I knew. If I said anything, you wouldn't believe me. You would defend your husband and your mother-in-law. You would say I was old and didn't understand anything. But now you have something that gives you a choice. The 3 condos, the cabin, the money. It's not just real estate, Keisha. It is your freedom. If you love Omar, if you are happy in this marriage, then stay. Live as before. But now you will be living by your own choice, not because you have nowhere else to go. And if you realize you deserve better, you'll have somewhere to go. You will have a roof over your head, even several roofs. And one more thing, darling, a very important one. After you find out about the inheritance, the people around you may change. There might be strange conversations, requests, or propositions. If you hear anything unpleasant or frightening, don't rush to react. Don't scream, don't cry, don't accuse. Listen first. Let people finish talking. Let them show you who they truly are, because people only show their true colors when they think no one is watching or listening, when they believe you won't find out. I believe in you, Keisha. You are strong, smart, and worthy. You just forgot that somewhere along the way. It's time to remember. Live, granddaughter. Live for yourself. I will always be with you in your heart. Your Grandma Lydia. Keisha finished reading the letter, and silent, hot tears ran down her cheeks. She sat in the armchair opposite the attorney, clutching the written pages, and for the first time in many years, she felt something shifting inside her. Vera Nicole discreetly looked away, pretending to be busy with documents, giving Keisha time to compose herself. After a few minutes, Keisha wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. "I'm sorry." "There's nothing to apologize for. These are powerful emotions. It's perfectly normal." They finished finalizing the documents about an hour later. Keisha left the law office with a heavy folder in her hands. Inside lay the certificates of entitlement, contracts, and bank account details. Her grandmother's whole life invested in those square feet. She walked to the nearest park, sat down on a bench, and pulled out her phone. She wanted to call Omar to tell him the news, but her finger hovered over the screen. If you hear anything strange, don't rush to react. Why did Grandma write that? What did she know or foresee? Keisha put the phone back in her bag, sat up straight, folded her hands in her lap, and began to recall the last few months. Grandma passed in February. In March, Omar suddenly became incredibly attentive. He started asking about her work, inquiring about her projects. Before, he could go weeks without asking her a single question about her life. In April, he suggested she sign over power of attorney to him for all her important documents, reasoning that it would be more convenient so she wouldn't have to run around to different offices. Keisha refused, saying she could handle it herself. Omar sulked for 3 days and then dropped the subject. In May, Vivian suddenly started asking about Grandma, wondering if she had left behind any valuables, documents, or savings. Keisha replied that there was nothing, just the room in the shared apartment, which had already been vacated. Her mother-in-law gave her a strange, narrowed look, but said nothing. A coincidence? Keisha got up from the bench. The decision came to her clearly and coldly. She wouldn't tell anyone about the inheritance yet, not until she figured out what was going on. Grandma was a smart woman. If she gave a warning, there was a reason for it. She got home at the usual time, around 7 in the evening. Omar and his mother were in the kitchen eating dinner. Vivian was cooking, as she always insisted Keisha couldn't cook properly. "Where have you been?" Omar asked without looking up from his plate. "Out on business, handling documents." "What documents?" "Work stuff, a new client contract." Omar nodded, losing interest. Vivian slid a scrutinizing glance at Keisha, but also remained silent. Keisha went into the bedroom, closed the door, sat on the bed, pulled the folder from her bag, and stared at the certificate of ownership. 3 condos, a cabin, $85,000 in the bank. She had a choice. For the first time in 9 years of marriage, a real choice. She hid the folder in the farthest drawer of the dresser, under a stack of old sweaters. Tomorrow, she would find a more secure place. For now, it could stay there. The evening passed as usual. Omar watched basketball. Vivian talked on the phone with a friend. Keisha sat at the computer finishing up her client project. They went to bed at 11 o'clock. Omar habitually hugged her, burying his face in her neck. Keisha lay awake, staring into the darkness, thinking about her grandmother, the letter, and the words that now hammered in her head like a bell. People only show their true colors when they think no one is watching. She turned onto her side and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be a new day. Let's see what it brings. Friday morning started normally. Omar left for work at 8 o'clock and Vivian at 9 o'clock. Keisha was left alone at home. She worked remotely, keeping a flexible schedule. She sat down at her computer, opened her email, wrote to a client that the project was ready, and sent the files. Then she started a new task, but couldn't focus. Her thoughts kept returning to yesterday, to Grandma's letter, to the inheritance. At 11 o'clock, Keisha stood up from her desk and walked through the apartment. She peeked into Vivian's room. The bed was neatly made. On the nightstand was a stack of glossy beauty magazines. On the wall were pictures of Omar at different ages. Not a single photo of her and Omar together, as if the daughter-in-law didn't exist. She went out, closed the door, walked to the kitchen, poured herself some water, and sat at the table looking out the window. She needed to go see the condos, the 3 that now belonged to her, to check their condition. Maybe tomorrow she would go to one of them, the one in the North End. But at that moment, the front door slammed shut. Keisha flinched and turned around. Who was that? Omar was at work until 6, and Vivian was at the salon until 7. She silently got up, went into the hallway, and listened. Voices were coming from her mother-in-law's room. 2 voices, a man and a woman, Omar and Vivian. But why were they home? Why weren't they at work? Keisha froze against the wall. She was about to go in and ask what was wrong, but then she heard a phrase that made the blood run cold in her veins. Her old lady died 4 months ago. I checked the records through Lisa at the city clerk's office. She owned 3 condos, 3 plus that cabin plot. She was renting out all of them. Can you imagine the kind of cash flow that was moving through there? It was Vivian's voice, sharp and satisfied. Keisha pressed her back against the hallway wall. Her heart was pounding so loudly she thought they would hear it. Seriously? Omar's voice responded. 3 condos? I thought she was broke. Keisha never said anything because your little fool didn't even know herself. That Lydia had been saving up in secret her whole life. She was a sly old fox, you've got to give her that. But the will is definitely made out to Keisha. The old lady didn't have any other relatives. How did you even find out about the condos? I told you, Lisa from the city clerk's office. We went to school together. I give her a free manicure and she slips me the information. Convenient setup. A pause. Keisha heard someone walk across the room and the floorboards creaked. So Keisha is going to find out soon, Omar said thoughtfully. Exactly. And we need to act fast before she realizes what's up. What do you mean? Vivian snorted. I mean, we can't miss this chance, Omar. Do you understand how much 3 small condos are worth right now? Even at the lowest prices, that's over $700,000. $700,000? And the cabin will fetch another $35,000 if the lot is decent. Keisha heard Omar whistle. Those are some serious figures. They are excellent figures, and that money can be ours, or rather yours, which means mine too. Mom, hold on. The inheritance is made out to Keisha. It's her personal property by law. I can't just take. You can't, if she doesn't want you to, Vivian interrupted. But this is where things get interesting. Listen closely. Keisha held her breath. As soon as your wife finds out about the inheritance and finalizes all the paperwork, you need to talk to her, sweetly, gently, like a family man. Tell her you're a family, and it's time to think about the future. Then suggest selling those condos. Explain that maintaining 3 properties is expensive. taxes, utility bills, repairs. But if you sell them, you can invest the money in a business. Like you've always dreamed of opening that auto body shop, right? Well, yeah, I have. So tell her that you need startup capital for your own business, that with your manager's salary, you'll be living in a rental until you're old. But if you open a business, you'll have decent money, stability, and you can finally have children. She won't want to sell, Omar countered uncertainly. They're grandma's condos. There are memories there. She will, if you pressure her right. You know your wife. She's weak-willed, compliant. She always does what she's told. You just have to present it the right way. Keisha stood in the hallway, feeling a coldness spread inside her. Weak-willed, compliant. That's what her mother-in-law thought of her. And the most frightening thing was that Omar wasn't disagreeing. But what if she still refuses? He asked. Then push the children angle. Keisha wants a baby, I know she does. You two have been discussing it for years. Tell her you can't have kids in a rental. You need your own place. Let her sell at least one condo. Use that money to buy a bigger 2 or 3 bedroom place. Naturally, you'll put it in your name. In my name, Omar repeated. Of course. You're the husband, the head of the family. It's logical. And then we'll see. We'll see what? Vivian paused. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and calculating. We'll see how life unfolds. If Keisha is obedient and invests in the family properly, you can keep her. But if she starts acting up, being stubborn, well, in a year or so, you can file for divorce. Once the money is invested in the business, it will be impossible to prove anything. Keisha clamped a hand over her mouth to stifle a cry. Mom, are you serious? Divorce? So what? Omar, look at the truth. You married her 9 years ago because she was convenient, quiet, calm, not a troublemaker. But she's nothing special, not vibrant, uninteresting. And what good is she? She works remotely. She earns peanuts. She barely keeps up with the house. I've been living with you for 5 years, and I do more housework than she does. Keisha closed her eyes. She contributed 38% to the family budget, 38%. And Vivian didn't pay any rent or buy groceries. She only cooked sometimes, and only when she felt like it. Mom, this all sounds kind of low, Omar mumbled. Low? What's low? Feeding a parasite for 8 years? That's not low. She lives in this apartment, uses everything, but what's her contribution? Nothing. You and I work and earn money, and she sits at the computer drawing little pictures. Well, she's a graphic designer. That's her job. Job. It's called freelancing. That's not a job. It's messing around. Normal people work stable jobs, not browsing the internet. Keisha clenched her teeth. She had worked as a designer at a major company until Vivian moved in. Then her mother-in-law orchestrated an entire campaign saying Keisha should be home to support the family, not hanging out at the office. Omar supported his mother. Keisha quit and went freelance. She thought it was temporary. 5 years passed. Listen to me, Omar, Vivian continued, her voice adopting soft, manipulative tones. I'm not thinking about myself. I'm thinking about you. You're smart, talented, but without startup capital, you'll work for someone else your whole life. And now fate is giving you a chance. You just need to use it right. What about you? What about me? I'm your mother. I invested in you my whole life, taught you, raised you, got you on your feet. When your father left us, who raised you? Me? Alone. I opened the studio so I could give you an education, so you wouldn't lack anything. Mom, what does that have to do with this? It has everything to do with this. Now it's my turn to get a return. My studio burned down 5 years ago. I was left with nothing. Do you think I enjoy living in your 2-bedroom rental? I want to open a new studio, a good one, a big one. And this money from the condos is our chance, yours and mine. So you want us to sell Keisha's condos and invest the money in your studio and my auto body shop? Exactly. You'll open the shop and I'll open the studio. We'll both get back on our feet. And Keisha? Well, she can be happy that she contributed to the family business. Omar was silent. Keisha braced herself, expecting him to object, to tell his mother that this was wrong, that you couldn't treat a wife like that, but he said something entirely different. How do I convince her to sell all 3 condos? Maybe she'll want to keep one for herself. Something inside Keisha snapped. He agreed. Just like that, he didn't even argue much. Tell her that maintaining 3 properties is too expensive and complicated, Vivian coached. That it's better to sell everything and use the proceeds to buy one big condo for the 2 of you, a 3 or 4 bedroom. Naturally, you'll put it in your name. You're the husband, after all. In my name, Omar repeated, and Keisha thought she heard a note of anticipation in his voice. Yes, and the rest of the money will be invested in the business. I've already figured it out. If the condos yield $850,000 and the cabin is another $35,000, that's $885,000, minus the purchase of a new condo. Let's say $300,000 goes to that. That leaves $585,000. That's enough to open a decent auto body shop and my studio with some left over for living expenses. Sounds appealing, Omar admitted. Of course it does. We'll finally live like real people. We won't count every penny. We won't rent. You'll be your own boss. Me too. Independence. Do you understand? I understand. So get to it, son. As soon as Keisha finds out about the inheritance, start making your move. Just be careful. No immediate pressure. Give her a day or 2 to be happy, and then gently lead her to the idea of selling. Talk about family, the future, and children. She's compliant. She'll agree. And if she doesn't? If she doesn't, hint at problems in the relationship. Tell her you don't understand how she can be so selfish, that a real wife supports her husband in everything. She'll be afraid of divorce. She'll give in. Trust me. A long pause. Okay, Omar finally said. I'll try to talk to her. That's my good boy. And remember, no remorse. This is our chance, and we are not going to miss it. Keisha stood in the hallway, pressing her palms to her chest. Everything inside her felt numb. There was no pain, no tears, no hysterics. Just a cold, absolute realization. Her husband, the man she had lived with for 9 years, who had promised to love and protect her, who had sworn loyalty, he had just agreed to deceive her, use her, and throw her out. And her mother-in-law, who had lived in their apartment for 5 years, eaten their food, and benefited from their care, called her a parasite. Keisha turned, walked silently into the bedroom, grabbed her bag and phone, and left the apartment as quietly as a ghost. On the landing, she stopped, leaned against the wall, and with trembling hands found the number for the law office on the internet and dialed it. Good afternoon, Covington Law. Vera Nicole, hello. This is Keisha Hayes. We finalized the estate yesterday. Yes, Keisha, hello. How can I help you? Could you recommend a good family law attorney? I need an urgent consultation. A pause hung in the receiver. Then the attorney said softly, I can. Anya Serena Peterson, a very competent specialist in asset protection. Hold on, I'll give you her number. Keisha wrote down the number, thanked her, and immediately called the lawyer. Peterson speaking. Hello, my name is Keisha Hayes. Attorney Covington recommended you. I need consultation on protecting an inheritance from my spouse. I understand, the woman briefly replied. I can see you today at 4 o'clock. Do you have the address? Keisha wrote it down, made the appointment, walked downstairs, and stepped outside. It was just past 1 in the afternoon. She had 4 hours until the meeting. She walked aimlessly, just moving through the streets. She thought about 9 years of marriage. 9 years she had believed they were a family, that they were together, a team. It turned out she was just convenient help, quiet, compliant, someone who could be used, deceived, and discarded when she became inconvenient. No, it wouldn't happen that way. Grandma had warned her and given her both the inheritance and the advice. Now it was up to Keisha. She stopped at a cafe window and looked at her reflection in the glass. A pale face, dark circles under her eyes, disheveled hair. a tired woman of 32 who had lost herself somewhere along the way. But right now, in this second, something changed. Her gaze became different, firm and determined. Keisha straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, walked into the cafe, ordered a coffee, and sat by the window, watching the passers-by. In 4 hours, she would meet with the lawyer, learn how to protect her assets, and ensure that no one, neither her husband nor her mother-in-law, could touch them. And at home, she would act as if nothing had happened. She would listen to Omar try to persuade her. She would record the conversations and gather the evidence. And when the moment came, she would strike. Grandma was right. People show their true colors when they think they aren't being watched. Omar and Vivian Hawthorne had shown their faces. Now it was Keisha's turn to show hers. She finished her coffee and stood up. She still had 3.5 hours until the meeting with the lawyer. She could go check out one of the condos, the one in the North End. Keisha left the cafe, hailed a taxi, and gave the address. As she rode, she looked out the window and, for the first time in many years, felt not fear but anticipation. A new life was beginning, her life, and in this life, she was making the decisions. Anya Serena Peterson's law office was located in a high-rise business center on the 9th floor. Keisha rode the elevator, arriving exactly at 4 o'clock, and found the right door. The plaque was understated, without frills, A.S. Peterson, Family and Estate Law. Anya Serena met her herself, without a secretary. A woman in her 50s, short ash-blonde hair, a tailored tan suit, and attentive gray eyes behind thin-framed glasses. Her handshake was firm and confident. The office was strict, almost minimalist. A large desk, 2 client chairs, and shelves stacked with legal books. No unnecessary details. Keisha sat in a chair, putting her bag on her lap. Anya Serena sat opposite her, pulled out a notepad and pen. "Tell me everything." And Keisha told her everything, about her grandmother's inheritance, the letter, and the overheard conversation between her husband and mother-in-law. She spoke calmly, without emotion, just stating the facts. Anya Serena listened, taking notes and occasionally clarifying details. When Keisha finished, the lawyer put down her pen, took off her glasses, and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "It's a good thing you came straight away. Let's look at the legal side of the matter. First, and most importantly, property acquired through inheritance is your separate personal property, according to Section 36 of the Family Code. Your spouse has no rights to it whatsoever. Even in the event of divorce, he cannot claim those condos or the cabin plot. But he and his mother said that if I voluntarily sold them and invested the money in his business, that's where things get complicated. If you voluntarily sell the real estate and transfer the money to your spouse's account, or invest it in a business registered in his name, it will be extremely difficult to prove the origin of those funds, especially if time passes and the money mixes with other income. In a divorce, the court could potentially deem those funds as marital assets." Keisha nodded. So their plan was well thought out. "What should I do?" Anya Serena put her glasses back on and picked up her pen. "First, under no circumstances should you sign any documents without consulting me. No deeds of gift, no consents to sell, no powers of attorney. If your spouse brings you any papers, tell him you want to study them and bring them immediately to me. Understood? Second, open a separate bank account at a different bank, not the one you share with your husband. Transfer all rental income from the condos into that account if you decide to rent them out. Keep all the inheritance documents and all financial transactions related to this property separate. Third, rent a safe deposit box. Put copies of all the inheritance documents in it. It's also best not to keep the originals at home, maybe with your parents, a friend, or at my office if you prefer." Keisha remembered how her mother-in-law was constantly rooting around in their bedroom. Now it was clear what she was looking for. "I'll do that." Fourth, and this is very important, collect evidence. If your spouse or his mother pressure you, threaten you, or manipulate you, record the conversations. By law, you have the right to record conversations you are personally participating in. This may come in handy. What if he finds out I'm recording? He won't, if you're careful. Every smartphone has a voice recorder. Turn it on before the conversation. Keep the phone in your pocket or nearby. Then send the files to my email. I will keep copies." Keisha took out her phone, opened the voice recorder app, tried it out, and checked the recording quality. The sound was clear. "I have another question," she said slowly. "We live in a rental apartment. If I decide to leave, I have somewhere to go. I have 3 condos. But how do I do it the right way?" Anya Serena looked at her intently. "Are you considering divorce?" "I'm considering all options." The lawyer nodded. "Wise. Good. Listen, if you decide to file for divorce, you can file the petition through me. I will prepare all the documents and submit them on your behalf. Your husband will only find out when he receives the summons. You don't have jointly acquired property. You have no children. That means the divorce could be fast. 1 month, 2 months, tops. And he won't be able to claim the condos? No, I repeat, the inheritance is your separate property. The only risk is if significant marital funds were invested in the properties during the marriage for capital improvements that substantially increased their value. But that would need to be proven, and it only concerns genuinely large investments. So if I do a cosmetic renovation on one of the condos so I can live there, that doesn't count? No, that doesn't count. Routine maintenance and minor repairs are considered normal property upkeep. Keisha took a deep breath and exhaled. A plan was beginning to form in her head. "One more thing," Anya Serena added. "If you decide to move into one of the condos before the divorce, be aware that your spouse might try to move in with you. By law, spouses are obligated to live together. You can deny him access, but that could complicate the divorce process. It's better to finalize the divorce first, then move, or move quietly without advertising it, and file for divorce immediately." Understood. They talked for 40 more minutes, discussing all the details, nuances, and possible scenarios. Anya Serena gave Keisha her business card with her cell phone number. "Call me any time if the situation escalates, and keep me informed. Send me recordings of any conversations to my email. I wrote the address on the back of the card." Keisha thanked her, paid for the consultation, and left the office with a clear head and a definite plan of action. Her first stop was a bank branch she hadn't used before. She opened a personal savings account in her name and requested a bank card be delivered to the address of one of her grandmother's condos, the one in the North End. Then, she rented a safe deposit box at the same bank and placed copies of all the inheritance documents in it, which she had prepared in advance at a copy center. She decided to keep the originals with her for now, but not at home. She would take them to her friend Maria, whom she had known since college, tomorrow. It was already 7 o'clock in the evening when Keisha returned home. Omar was sitting in the kitchen, looking at his phone. Vivian wasn't there. She was probably still at the salon. "Where were you?" he asked, not looking up from the screen. "I met with a client. We discussed a new project." "Uh-huh." He didn't even ask for details. Keisha used to be hurt by such indifference. Now, she felt only cold relief. Fewer questions, less lying. She went to the bedroom, changed clothes, turned on her computer, and pretended to work. In reality, she was making a list of things she needed to gradually remove from the apartment: documents, photographs, Grandma's jewelry, her favorite books, and clothing. Nothing big, nothing noticeable, a little bit every day. Vivian returned around 9 o'clock. Keisha heard her talking to Omar in the kitchen. Their voices were muffled, but their tone was distinguishable. Her mother-in-law was clearly nervous, talking quickly and disjointedly. Omar answered briefly, trying to calm her down. Keisha got up, walked to the door, and listened, but she couldn't make out the words. They were speaking too quietly. No matter. Soon they would start acting openly, and then she would record everything. The following days were spent in careful preparation. Keisha went to the condo in the North End and inspected it. It was a small one-bedroom on the 5th floor of a modest brick building. The condition was acceptable. Grandma's tenants had been neat. It only needed a cosmetic refresh, some wallpaper patching, painting the walls, and replacing a couple of electrical outlets. She found a contractor and arranged the renovation. The workers promised to finish in 2 weeks. She paid them using the $85,000 from her grandmother's account. At the same time, she began moving her belongings out of the rental apartment. She packed them in large bags, telling Omar and Vivian she was taking them to the dry cleaner or lending them to a friend. They didn't even notice. She took the items to the condo in the North End and stored them in the closet. A week passed. Keisha continued to act normally. She worked at her computer, prepared dinners, and watched TV with Omar in the evenings. She never mentioned the inheritance. She saw how nervous Omar and his mother were, how they exchanged meaningful glances, and how Vivian was staying out late more often after work, then whispering with her son in the kitchen for hours. On the 8th day, her mother-in-law couldn't take it anymore. In the evening, when the three of them were sitting in the kitchen for dinner, she suddenly put down her fork and looked at Keisha. "Keisha, your grandmother? Did she leave you anything? After she passed?" Keisha slowly looked up from her plate and looked at her mother-in-law, calm and unemotional. "I don't know. No one has called." "Strange," Vivian drawled. "Usually relatives are called to the attorney's office if there's a will." "Maybe they will call someday. It's been quiet so far." "But it's been 4 months. So what? Maybe there are some bureaucratic delays. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how it works." Omar joined the conversation. "You could call the law office yourself, find out. Maybe there's something." "Why?" "If they need me, they'll find me and call." "Look, Omar, I really don't want to think about this right now. Grandma just passed away. It's hard for me. Let's change the subject." She lowered her eyes to her plate and continued eating. Vivian and Omar exchanged a quick glance. Keisha saw it out of the corner of her eye and barely suppressed a smile. They were confused. Their source at the city clerk's office assured them there was a will. But Keisha was silent. Either she really didn't know or she was hiding something, and they couldn't figure out what was happening. After dinner, Keisha heard them whispering in Vivian's room again. This time she cautiously approached the door, turned on the voice recorder on her phone, and pressed her ear to the crack. Maybe Lisa was wrong? That was Omar's voice. She wasn't wrong. I saw the printout myself. It clearly stated 3 real estate properties in the name of Lydia Stephen Hayes, will made out to Keisha Vaughn Hayes. Then why is she quiet? Does she really not know, or is she suspicious of something? Suspicious? Of what? I don't know. Did she somehow figure us out? How? We were talking quietly then. She was at work. Are you sure? I think so. Yes, I checked. She wasn't home. Fine, we'll stick to the plan. If she knows about the inheritance, or if she finds out, she'll slip up eventually. The main thing is not to push too hard, or we'll scare her off. Keisha stepped away from the door, turned off the recorder, saved the file, and sent it to Anya Serena's email, adding a short explanation. Mother-in-law and husband discussing the inheritance. The lawyer replied in 10 minutes, "Received. Excellent. Keep gathering evidence." The next day, Omar began to act. At breakfast, he suddenly started talking about the future. "Keisha, I've been thinking it's time for us to seriously consider having children. What do you think?" Keisha looked up from her coffee and turned on the voice recorder beforehand. Her phone was in the pocket of her robe. "Children?" "Yeah, we're both over 30. It's time. All our friends have kids already, and we keep putting it off." "We're putting it off because we live in a rental. You always said we needed to buy our own place first." "Exactly. That's why I'm thinking, maybe it's time to get serious about this. We don't have the money for an apartment." "What if we found a way? For example, I could open my own business, the auto body shop. Remember how I always dreamed of it? With good startup capital, I could get it running and start earning decent money. Then we'd buy a condo and have kids." Keisha nodded thoughtfully. "Sounds good, but where would the startup capital come from?" Omar hesitated. "Well, we could take out a loan with crazy interest rates." "No, thank you. Then maybe we could save up somehow? We'll be saving for 20 years. Omar frowned, clearly expecting a different reaction. He was waiting for Keisha to bring up the inheritance herself if she knew about it, but she remained silent, calmly finishing her coffee. All right, we'll think about it some more, he mumbled. Keisha nodded, stood up, and took her cup to the sink. Omar watched her with a puzzled look. Conversations like this repeated every 2 or 3 days. Omar would bring up children or the apartment or the business. Keisha would listen, nod, and agree that it would be nice, but she never once mentioned the inheritance, and she recorded the conversation every time. Vivian also began to act, but her methods were cruder. She started being openly rude. One evening, when Keisha was making dinner, her mother-in-law came into the kitchen, tasted the sauce, and made a face. "Too much salt again. Don't you have any taste buds?" "I think it's fine." "It's fine for someone who can't cook. Step aside, I'll finish it." Keisha stepped away, not arguing or snapping back. She simply walked out of the kitchen, leaving her mother-in-law to finish dinner. In the past, she would have been hurt and upset. Now, she felt nothing but cold relief. Vivian could be rude all she wanted. It would end soon. A few days later, Vivian walked into the bedroom Keisha shared with Omar without knocking. Keisha was sitting at her computer, working. "Keisha, I need to talk." "I'm listening." "You know, my friend offered me a room in her apartment. It's cheaper than here. I was thinking, maybe I should move out." Keisha turned around and looked at her mother-in-law. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest, with a challenging expression. "Whatever you want, Vivian, that's your decision." "Well, I just realized that you and Omar are cramped, and I'm in the way here." "You're not in the way." "Yes, I am. And besides, you've been married for 9 years. It's time you had your own place. It's awkward living in a rental with your husband's mother, isn't it?" Keisha remained silent, watching her mother-in-law, waiting for the continuation. "So I was thinking, maybe it's time for you to move out? Rent a bigger apartment without me? Or better yet, buy something." "With what money?" "I don't know. Save up. Take out a loan. Omar wants to open a business. Maybe he'll succeed. Or maybe you have some options." There it is. The pressure is starting. Keisha turned back to her computer. "Vivian, if you want to move, then move. No one is keeping you. But Omar and I are staying here for now. When we have the money to buy a place, we will. Until then, we're renting, and we're fine with that. Now I need to work. Excuse me." The mother-in-law stood there for a moment, then abruptly turned and left. Keisha heard her room door slam shut. That evening, she listened in on their conversation again. Vivian was furious. "Is she stupid or what? I hinted so directly, and she had zero reaction." "Mom, maybe she really doesn't know anything. It can't be. 4 months have passed. Attorneys are obligated to notify heirs. She knows. I'm sure of it. She's just hiding it." "Then what should we do?" "We need to push harder. Tell her straight up. I want to start a business. I need money. If you have any options, speak up." Omar mumbled something vaguely. Keisha turned off the recorder and sent the recording to the lawyer. 2 more weeks passed. The renovation in the North End condo was finished. Keisha went, accepted the work, and the condo felt cozy and fresh. She brought in bedding, towels, and dishes. She bought necessary small items at the store: shampoo, soap, laundry detergent. She stocked the refrigerator with groceries. The condo was ready to live in. Meanwhile, her relationship with her mother-in-law had completely broken down. Vivian stopped hiding her hostility. She was rude at every opportunity, making nasty remarks and provoking conflicts. One morning, Keisha found her favorite mug, a gift from Grandma, broken in the sink, shattered. "Vivian, do you know what happened to my mug?" "It fell. I was doing the dishes. It slipped. It's too bad, but it's just a mug. Buy a new one." "It was a gift from my grandmother." "So what? Dead people don't need mugs." Keisha stopped at the kitchen doorway and looked at her mother-in-law with a long, cold stare. "Vivian, I live here because this is my husband's rental. If you have a problem with living together, you can move out yourself. No one is keeping you." The mother-in-law turned crimson. "How dare you? I'm Omar's mother." "And does that give you the right to be rude?" "I'm not being rude. I'm telling the truth. You've been living off my son for 9 years, giving nothing back. I contribute almost 40% of the family budget. You contribute nothing. So who's living off whom? Vivian opened her mouth, closed it, found nothing to say, turned around, and flew out of the kitchen, slamming the door loudly. Keisha calmly brewed coffee in a new mug and sat down at the table. Inside, everything was level and cold. In the past, after such clashes, she would have been upset and distressed. Now, she felt only satisfaction. Her mother-in-law got her answer and realized that Keisha was no longer the quiet mouse she could order around. That evening, Keisha listened in as Vivian complained to Omar. "Your wife has completely lost it. She's talking back. She's rude. I just made an honest observation, and she snapped at me." "Mom, you do go overboard sometimes." "So you're on her side now?" "I'm not on anyone's side. Look, Omar, remember, I'm your mother. I raised you my whole life. I sacrificed everything. And who is she? A wife who hasn't even given you a child in 9 years. We weren't ready. You always have excuses. Listen to me. You need to talk to her firmly. Put her in her place. Show her who's the boss in this house. Otherwise, she'll run over you completely." Omar muttered something inaudible. Keisha turned off the recorder and smirked. Her mother-in-law was losing control. Good. 3 weeks had passed since Keisha received the inheritance. She had gradually moved almost all her valuable possessions to the North End condo. Only the most necessary clothing and cosmetics remained. She could pack a bag and leave at any moment. The lawyer approved her actions. Anya Serena listened to all the recordings, studied the situation, and gave the go-ahead for the next stage, filing for divorce. "You have enough evidence of their intentions," she said over the phone. "Recordings of them discussing their plan to deceive you, attempted manipulation by your husband, and your mother-in-law's hostility. All of this will create a full picture for the court if needed. Are you ready to file the petition?" "Yes," Keisha answered firmly. "I am." "Then come by tomorrow. We'll finalize the documents." The next day, Keisha went to see the lawyer. They drafted the petition for dissolution of marriage and gathered all the necessary documents. Anya Serena promised to file them with the court at the start of the following week. Omar will receive the summons about a week after filing, most likely on Thursday or Friday, the lawyer explained. "You will have time to prepare for his reaction. I'm ready." "Are you sure you don't want to move out right away? You could do it before he receives the summons. Fewer conflicts that way." Keisha thought about it, but decided to stay. "No, I want to see how they react when they find out. I want to see their faces." Anya Serena nodded with understanding. "That's your right. Just be careful. If you feel threatened, leave immediately and call me." Keisha returned home in the evening. Omar was sitting on the sofa watching television. Vivian wasn't there. He looked at her strangely, scrutinizing her. "Something's different about you." "What's different?" "I don't know. You're just different. You used to be softer. Now you're so cold." Keisha shrugged. "Maybe I'm tired? I just have a lot of work." Omar kept staring at her, then sighed. "Keisha, we need to talk." "Seriously talk." "About what?" "Our future." Keisha turned on the recorder in her jeans pocket and sat in the armchair opposite the sofa. "I'm listening." Omar fidgeted, choosing his words. "Look, we've been married for 9 years, and I feel like we're stuck in one place. We're renting, barely making ends meet. No kids. It's not right." "And what do you propose?" "I need to grow. I can't be a sales rep my whole life. I want to open my own business, the auto body shop. I know the business. I have the experience and the contacts. I'm confident it will work, but I need startup capital." "How much?" $5 million minimum. $10 million is better. For renting the space, buying equipment, and covering employee salaries for the first little while." "Where would that kind of money come from?" Omar looked at her expectantly. "I thought maybe you had some ideas, some options." "What options? I don't have that kind of money." "What about your grandmother? Did she leave you anything? There it is, the direct question. Keisha paused, looking at him, then slowly said, Omar, I need to think about our future. His face brightened. He clearly took this as agreement. That's what I'm talking about. Let's think together as a family. If Grandma left you something, this is our chance. I said I need to think, Keisha interrupted. Give me some time. How much time? I don't know. A week. 2. Omar nodded, satisfied. Okay, think about it. Just don't take too long. Opportunities don't last forever. Keisha stood up, went to the bedroom, closed the door, turned off the recorder, and sent the file to the lawyer with a comment. Husband directly asks about the inheritance, trying to manipulate. The reply came instantly. Excellent. Hang in there. Everything is going according to plan. The next day, Saturday, Vivian staged what she called a family council. In the evening, after dinner, she solemnly sat Keisha and Omar down at the kitchen table and sat opposite them. So, she began with weight, we need to talk frankly, no holding back. Keisha looked at her calmly, hands folded on the table. The recorder was on. Keisha, the mother-in-law continued, did you receive an inheritance from your grandmother or not? A direct question, straight to the point. Keisha didn't rush to answer. She looked at Vivian, then at Omar. He avoided her gaze, nervous. Why are you asking? Keisha finally said. Because we are family, Vivian exclaimed, and if anyone in the family has an opportunity to help the others, they should do it. An opportunity to help? Yes. Omar wants to start a business. He needs money. If your grandmother left you something, it's our chance. Our chance? Of course ours. You and Omar are husband and wife. Everything one person has belongs to both of you. Keisha shook her head. Not exactly. An inheritance is the personal property of the person who received it. Vivian frowned. How do you know that? I read up on it. Read up? Smarty pants. Listen to me, girl. There should be no secrets or separate money in a family. Everything is shared. And if Grandma left you condos or anything else, you are obligated to share it with your husband. You are obligated. Yes, you are his wife. Keisha stood up from the table and looked down at her mother-in-law. Vivian, I am obligated to no one, especially not you. Vivian shot up, purple with anger. How dare you speak to me like that? Calmly. I'm tired of enduring your rudeness and manipulation. Enough. Omar! Vivian screamed. Did you hear how she's talking to me? Omar sat, head bowed, silent. Omar, say something. She's insulting your mother. He slowly looked up and met Keisha's eyes. Keisha, why are you being like this? Mom is talking sense. We're family. We should help each other. Help, Keisha repeated. I see. She turned and walked into the bedroom. Vivian was yelling something after her, but Keisha didn't listen. She closed the door, locked it, sat on the bed, turned off the recorder, and sent the file to the lawyer, writing, They are openly demanding I hand over the inheritance. I think it's time to act. The reply came instantly. Agreed. I'm filing the divorce papers on Monday. Hang in there. Keisha lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Beyond the door, her mother-in-law continued to scream. Omar was saying something, trying to calm her down. Just a few more days. Only a few days and everything would change. Grandma was right. People had shown their true colors, and now Keisha knew what to do. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her chest felt calm and cold. Clear. The game was still on, and she was going to win. Keisha lay in the bedroom, listening as the voices outside the door finally died down. Vivian finally calmed down and stopped shouting. Omar said something to her, softly, soothingly. Then she heard footsteps, and the mother-in-law's room door slammed shut. Silence. Keisha looked at her phone. A message from Anya Serena. We file the documents in court on Monday at 10 in the morning. Be prepared for your husband's reaction in about a week. Today was Saturday. That meant in 9 days, Omar would receive the divorce summons. 9 days. She could continue to live here, watching their attempts to get to the money. Or not. Maybe it was time to end everything sooner? She remembered that day a month ago, the day everything changed, when she was happily returning from the attorney's office to tell her husband and mother-in-law that Grandma had left her 3 condos and a cabin. But upon entering her home, she heard their voices and decided to listen in, and was frozen in horror by what she heard. Then, at that moment, standing in the hallway and listening to the people closest to her planning to deceive and discard her, something inside broke. Not with pain or a scream, quietly, definitively. Like an old rope that had been stretched too far, finally snapping. And now, a month later, she was ready to finish what began that day. Keisha got out of bed and walked to the window. It was dark outside. The streetlights were on. Somewhere below, children were laughing, playing hide and seek. A typical Saturday night. Typical for someone else, but for her, it was her last night in this apartment. She took a small travel bag from the closet and began packing the rest of her things. A makeup bag, a few t-shirts, jeans, underwear. Everything else was already at the North End condo. This was the last bag. She packed it, closed it, and placed it by the door. Then she picked up her phone and texted Anya Serena. "Leaving tomorrow. I think it's time to end this charade." The reply came a minute later. "I support you. Go for it. I'm available." Keisha went to bed without leaving the room. Omar never knocked or tried to talk. He was sleeping on the sofa in the living room. His mother probably told him to give his wife time to think. Let him think that. Sunday morning started late. Keisha got up at 9 o'clock, dressed, brushed her hair, grabbed her bag, and walked out of the bedroom. Omar and Vivian were in the kitchen drinking coffee. They saw her with the bag and exchanged glances. "Where are you going?" Omar asked. "To a friend's place for a couple of days." "Which friend?" "Maria. I need a break. Need to think." Vivian narrowed her eyes, satisfied. She clearly thought the plan was working, that Keisha was breaking under the pressure. Good. Think hard. Family is the most important thing. You have to be able to make sacrifices for the people you love. Keisha didn't answer. She simply turned and walked out of the apartment. She took a taxi to the North End condo, looking out the window. The city was waking up. People were rushing about their business. Stores, cafes, and hair salons were opening somewhere. Just the normal life of normal people. Soon, she would have a normal life too. Without lies, without manipulation, without a mother-in-law who called her a parasite. The condo met her with silence and the smell of fresh paint. Keisha put her bag in the hallway and walked through the rooms. Everything was in place. Everything was ready. Her belongings were neatly stacked in the closet. Dishes were in the kitchen, and food was in the fridge. Home, her home. She sat on the sofa, took out her phone, and texted Anya Serena. "I've moved out. We're filing the papers tomorrow." The reply, "Yes, I will be at the courthouse at 10 o'clock. You don't need to come. I will handle everything. I'll meet you at the office at 2 o'clock. We will discuss the details." Keisha spent the rest of the day settling into the condo. She hung towels in the bathroom, arranged books on the shelf, and put away her clothes. By evening, everything was ready. She went to bed early, in her own bed, in her own condo. She slept soundly, without dreams. Monday was calm. Keisha worked at her computer, talked to clients, and finalized projects. At 2 o'clock, she drove to Anya Serena's office. The lawyer met her with a folder of documents. "I filed the petition this morning. The court date is set for July 23rd in 3 weeks. Your husband will receive the summons this week, most likely Thursday or Friday." "Okay. He will call and try to meet. What should I do?" Keisha thought for a moment. "I won't answer the phone. Everything I needed to say, I'll say in court." "A wise decision, but be prepared for him to try to come to you. Does he know the address of the North End condo?" "No, I haven't told anyone." "Excellent. That means it will be difficult for him to find you. Keep your phone on, though. If anything happens, call me immediately." They discussed the details of the upcoming court hearing, possible questions, and arguments. Anya Serena was confident in their success. You have no jointly acquired property, no children, no shared debt. The divorce will be a formality. The only thing your husband might try to do is drag out the process by requesting reconciliation. But the judge is unlikely to agree, given the circumstances. Keisha returned home and continued to work. Her phone was silent. Omar hadn't called or texted. He probably still thought she was at her friend's, thinking about their future. 3 days passed. Wednesday, Thursday. Silence. On Friday, around 11 o'clock in the morning, her phone was flooded with calls. Omar, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 times. Keisha didn't answer. Then came the texts. Keisha, pick up the phone urgently. This has to be a mistake. I got a summons from the court. Did you file for divorce? Answer me. Keisha read the messages calmly, not replying. She blocked Omar's number, then she blocked Vivian's number, who also started calling. At 4 o'clock, Anya Serena called. Your husband came to my office demanding explanations. He was yelling and threatening. I had to call security. Threatening? Verbally. He said he wouldn't agree to the divorce, that you would regret it, and that he would find a way to get what's his. Everything is recorded on my office cameras. If he continues, we will file for harassment. Good. Has he come to you? No. He doesn't know where I am. Excellent. Hold tight. Only 2.5 weeks until the hearing. That evening, Keisha sat on her balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sunset. Her phone lay beside her, turned off. Silence. Peace. Somewhere in that rental apartment, Omar and Vivian were probably panicking, trying to figure out what happened, how Keisha found out, why she filed for divorce, and where she was now. Let them guess. A week passed. Keisha worked, met with clients, and walked around the city. She lived the normal life she hadn't lived for the last 9 years. No one controlled where she was, who she was with, or when she came home. No one was rude, pressured her, or manipulated her. Freedom turned out to be quiet, not loud, not dazzling, just a quiet, calm certainty that she belonged to herself. Omar kept trying to reach her from different numbers. Keisha blocked every new one. Then he started emailing and messaging her on social media. She didn't read them. She deleted them immediately. 3 days before the court date, a message came from Anya Serena. Your spouse filed a counterpetition for reconciliation. The court denied it. The hearing will proceed as planned. Keisha felt relieved. It would all be over soon. July 23rd was a hot day. Keisha woke up early, dressed in smart black slacks and a white shirt, pulled her hair back into a ponytail, and applied minimal makeup. She looked calm and confident. The court started at 11 o'clock. She arrived 20 minutes early and met Anya Serena in the hall. Ready? Yes. He's already here, with his mother. They're sitting in the corridor waiting. I see. Do not speak to them before the hearing. If they try to approach you, walk right past. They went up to the 3rd floor and walked down the corridor. Omar was sitting on a bench, hunched over. Next to him, Vivian was tense and angry. They saw Keisha and jumped up. Omar took a step toward her. Keisha, we need to talk. Keisha walked past him, not looking at him. Anya Serena blocked his path. Do not approach my client. I'm her husband. You are the respondent in a divorce case. All questions will be addressed in the courtroom. They entered the courtroom. Keisha sat next to the lawyer, hands folded in her lap, breathing evenly and calmly. A minute later, Omar and his mother walked in and sat on the opposite side. Omar looked at Keisha with a pleading gaze. Vivian looked at her with hatred. The judge, an elderly woman with gray hair and a stern face, walked in. Everyone stood up, then sat down. The hearing began. The judge read the petition and asked Keisha if she confirmed her intention to dissolve the marriage. Yes, I confirm. The grounds? Irreconcilable differences. The marriage has fundamentally ceased to exist. The judge turned to Omar. Does the respondent agree to the dissolution of marriage? Omar was silent. Vivian nudged him with her elbow. "No, I do not agree," he choked out. "I want to save my family. I ask for a period of reconciliation." The judge looked at the documents. The petition for reconciliation was already denied. There are no grounds for a repeat review. Respondent, do you have any claims regarding the division of property? Yes, Vivian interrupted. My daughter-in-law has an inheritance. 3 condos. They must be divided. The judge frowned. Who are you? I am the respondent's mother. You are not a party to this case. Please remain silent or leave the courtroom. Vivian pressed her lips together but fell silent. The judge turned back to Omar. I repeat the question. Do you have any claims regarding the division of property? Omar looked at Keisha, then at the judge. Yes, my wife received an inheritance during the marriage. I believe I am entitled to half. Anya Serena stood up. Your Honor, according to Section 36 of the Family Code, property received by one spouse through inheritance is their separate property and is not subject to division. I present documents confirming that the real estate was received by my client through a will. She handed the folder to the judge. The judge reviewed the documents and nodded. The respondent's claims are unfounded. The inheritance is not a marital asset. Omar turned pale. But that's not fair. I'm her husband. The law does not provide for the division of an inheritance between spouses, the judge stated curtly. Do the parties have any other claims? Marital property, debts, or loans? Anya Serena shook her head. No. The parties lived in a rental property, did not acquire joint property, have no children, and have no financial obligations to each other. Respondent, do you confirm this? Omar sat with his head down. He nodded. The judge made a note in the documents. Given the absence of property disputes, children, and the mutual acknowledgement of the impossibility of saving the marriage, the court issues a decree of dissolution of marriage. The decree will become final 1 month from the date of issue. Hearing adjourned. She struck the gavel. It was over. Keisha stood up, thanked Anya Serena, turned, and walked toward the exit. Omar jumped up and tried to block her way. Keisha, wait, we need to talk. She stopped and looked at him. For the first time in 3 weeks, she looked him in the eye. We have nothing to talk about. How can you say that? We were together for 9 years. We were. Now we're not. I don't understand what happened. Why are you like this? Why? Vivian rushed over and grabbed Keisha's arm. You ruined my son's life. You destroyed a family over some condos. Keisha quickly pulled her arm away. Don't touch me. What do you think you are? You think you're somebody now that you have money? Vivian, step away. The mother-in-law didn't back down. She stepped closer, raising her hand, trying to slap her. Keisha caught her wrist, stopping the blow an inch from her face, and squeezed hard. It hurts. If you touch me, I'm filing a police report. I have witnesses, and I have recordings of your conversations where you planned to defraud me. Just try it. Vivian snatched her hand back and retreated, her eyes full of hatred. What recordings? What are you talking about? Keisha took out her phone, opened the folder with the audio files, and found the very first one. She hit play. Vivian's voice came from the speaker. Her old lady died 4 months ago. I checked the records through Lisa at the city clerk's office. She owned 3 condos, 3 plus that cabin plot. Keisha stopped the playback and looked at her mother-in-law's white face and her husband's bewildered expression. I heard everything that very day when you thought I wasn't home. A month ago, you discussed how you would trick me, force me to sell the condos, invest the money in your business, and then divorce me once the money was spent. Omar opened his mouth, closed it, and found nothing to say. Vivian tried to salvage the situation. That's not what you think. We were just discussing options. Options for deception. Options for exploiting me. I heard every word and recorded it. I have 23 audio files of your conversations. They've all been given to my lawyer. They can all be used in court if you try anything else. The mother-in-law fell silent, realizing she had lost. Omar stepped forward, holding out his hands. Keisha, I'm sorry. I was an idiot. Mom talked me into it. I wasn't thinking straight. Please forgive me. Let's start over. Keisha shook her head. If you loved me, you wouldn't have agreed to your mother's plan. You agreed to deceive me and dump me for money. That's not love, Omar. That's calculation. No, I love you, truly. You love yourself and your mother. I'm not even on the third spot on that list. I'll change, I promise. Don't bother. I'm not interested. Keisha walked around him and headed for the exit. Omar rushed after her. Wait, where are you going now? Where are you living? Let's meet and talk like adults. She stopped at the door and turned around. I've already filed for divorce. The court has issued the decree. In 1 month, we will be officially divorced. There's nothing left to discuss. But you have 2 weeks to vacate the rental apartment. The lease is in my name. If you don't leave, I will terminate the lease, and the landlord will evict you both. Omar froze. Are you serious? You're throwing me out? I'm throwing both of you out. It's my apartment. I rented it. I pay for it. I won't be paying anymore. But my mother and I, we have nowhere to go. Those are your problems. Vivian works. You work. Rent something for yourselves, together or separately. I don't care. Vivian stepped forward, her face contorted with rage. You'll regret this. Omar will find a way to sue you for those condos. We'll hire a lawyer. Hire one. The law is on my side, and I have an excellent lawyer who proved it in court today. Good luck to you both. Keisha walked out of the courthouse. Anya Serena caught up with her on the street. Excellent job. You were brilliant. Thank you. What now? In 1 month, you'll receive the certificate of dissolution of marriage. Everything will be officially over. Until then, live peacefully. If your ex-husband or his mother bother you, call me. We'll file a harassment claim. They said goodbye. Keisha hailed a taxi, headed home, and looked out the window at the city passing by, feeling a strange sense of calm. Not joy or triumph, just peace. 2 weeks passed. Omar vacated the rental apartment. Keisha went there on the last day and picked up the last of her things. The apartment was empty, alien, as if she had never lived there. She explained to the landlady that she was getting a divorce and would no longer be renting. The landlady was understanding and returned the security deposit. Keisha stood in the empty living room, looking at the bare walls. 9 years she had lived here. 9 years she considered this place home, but it was just a rental apartment, a temporary refuge. Her real home was waiting for her in another neighborhood, in the condo her grandmother had left her. She closed the door, handed the keys to the landlady, and drove away, never to return. 1 month later, the certificate of dissolution of marriage arrived. An official document confirming that Keisha Vaughn Hayes and Omar Ignacio Hawthorne were no longer spouses. Keisha put the certificate in the folder with the other documents, locked it in the safe, and closed that chapter. Life went on. She got a job at a large graphic design studio, the same one that had offered her the creative director position 3 years ago. The position was taken, but they hired her as a lead designer. Good salary, interesting projects, and a pleasant team. She rented out 2 of the inherited condos, found respectable tenants, and formalized everything officially. The rental income covered all her expenses, with some left over. She decided to keep the cabin plot for herself. That summer, she drove out there and began tidying it up. A small house, an overgrown yard, an old gazebo. Grandma had planted the apple, cherry, and currant bushes there herself. Keisha hired a gardener and asked him to clean up the lot. By the end of the summer, the cabin plot was transformed, becoming a place where she could go on weekends to escape the city bustle. Omar tried to make contact a few times, calling from new numbers and sending messages on social media. Keisha didn't reply. She blocked them. Then he stopped trying. She learned through mutual acquaintances that he was renting a room in a cheap extended-stay hotel and working at the same construction site. Vivian had closed her hair studio. debts, loans, and tax issues. She was now working as a basic stylist in someone else's salon for minimum wage. Keisha felt neither joy nor schadenfreude at this news. She just acknowledged it. They were no longer a part of her life. That fall, she met Maria, her old friend, whom she hadn't seen in several years. They sat in a cafe, drank coffee, and chatted about life. "You've changed," Maria said, looking intently at Keisha. "You're different somehow." "In what way?" "More confident, calmer. Before you were, I don't know how to describe it, sort of run down, and now you're glowing." Keisha smiled. "I'm just living for myself now, finally." "And how is it?" "Strange, unfamiliar, but good." Maria reached out and squeezed her hand. "I'm genuinely happy for you." Another month passed. Winter came early. Snow fell in early November. Keisha stood on the balcony of her condo, wrapped in a blanket, looking out at the white city below. Did she feel happy? That was a difficult question. Happiness is when everything is perfect, when you have a loved one by your side, when your plans for the future are bright and joyful. She didn't have a loved one. Her plans were simple and ordinary: work, condos, and the cabin. Nothing grand. But she felt free. That was more important than happiness. The freedom to choose where to go, what to do, and who to talk to. The freedom to wake up in the morning and not think about who she had to please today. Her phone vibrated, an unfamiliar number. Keisha frowned and answered. "Hello?" Omar's voice. "Keisha, it's me. Don't hang up, please." She remained silent, waiting. "I need to talk to you. I realize I was wrong, that I behaved like a total... Forgive me. Give me a chance to fix everything." Keisha looked at the falling snow. "You had your chance. 9 years. You wasted it. Don't call again." "Wait, I've really changed. I moved out of my mother's place. I live alone. I've realized a lot." "Omar, even if you've changed, I'm not interested. I don't want to go back. I don't want to try again. I just don't want to. And don't call again." She hung up, blocked the number, stood on the balcony for another minute, then returned inside, poured herself some coffee, sat on the sofa, and turned on her favorite movie, one she hadn't watched in 9 years because Omar said it was a stupid melodrama. She watched, drank coffee, wrapped in a blanket, and for the first time in a long time, she felt that everything was exactly where it should be. 6 months after the divorce. February, the anniversary of Grandma Lydia's passing. Keisha went to the cemetery, brought flowers, stood by the grave, and looked at the photograph. Grandma smiled from the picture with her quiet, wise smile. "Thank you, Grandma," Keisha whispered. "You were right about everything." The wind stirred the tree branches, shaking snow onto the ground. Quiet, peaceful. Keisha stood for a moment longer, then turned and walked toward the exit. Life went on. Her life. And that was what mattered most. That evening, she sat in her condo, working on a new project. Coffee was on the desk. A notepad with sketches lay nearby. Soft music played. Rain tapped on the window. March was unpredictable. Snow one moment, rain the next. Keisha leaned back in her chair, stretched, and looked at the clock. 9:30 in the evening. The workday was over. She closed her laptop, poured herself another coffee, went to the window, and looked at the city. Lights in the windows, cars on the roads, people rushing about their business. Somewhere out there, in that city, Omar lived. Somewhere else, his mother lived. They were building their lives, solving their problems without her, and she was without them. Fair enough. Keisha remembered the words from her grandmother's letter. "It's not just real estate, Keisha. It is your freedom." A month ago, she hadn't fully understood those words. She thought freedom meant money, condos, the ability to leave. Now she understood. Freedom is the right to choose. Not because you're afraid of being homeless, not because of outside pressure, but simply because you want something, or you don't. Her phone vibrated again, another unknown number. Keisha looked at the screen and sighed. Omar hadn't given up. She answered the call. Keisha, it's me. Please, let's meet. Let's talk like grown-ups. We have nothing to talk about. How can you say that? We have 9 years behind us. We did. Now we don't. I miss you. Keisha chuckled. You don't miss me. You miss what I could give you. The condos, the money, the easy life. I don't believe you've changed. People don't change that fast. I really have changed. Maybe, but I don't care. I don't want to check. Don't call again, Omar. I'm serious. Next time, I'm going to my lawyer and filing a restraining order. Leave me alone. She hung up and blocked the number. That was the last time. She wouldn't give him another chance to call. Keisha finished her coffee, grabbed her bag, put on her jacket, and decided to take a walk despite the rain. She needed fresh air and movement. She walked out onto the street, moving along the wet sidewalks. Rain tapped on her hood, and the streetlights reflected in the puddles. The city lived its nightlife. Keisha walked, thinking about the future, about what came next, work, condos, and the cabin. That was a good foundation. But what did she want for herself? She hadn't asked herself such questions before. She lived life as it happened, as circumstances dictated. Now she could allow herself to think about her desires. What did she want? To travel. She had long dreamed of seeing the ocean, the mountains, and the old cities of Europe. Now she could save up and go. No one would forbid her or say it was a waste of money. To learn. She wanted to take painting and photography courses. Now she could enroll and attend classes. She had the time, she had the money. To live. Just to live, without looking over her shoulder at other people's opinions and expectations. Keisha stopped by a small park and sat on a bench under the awning. She took out her phone, opened her notes, and began to write a wish list. The ocean, painting classes, a new project at work, renovations at the cabin, maybe get a cat. The list grew, and with every line, she felt warmer inside. This was her life, her choices, her future. She stood up and headed home. The rain had stopped. The moon emerged from behind the clouds. The city shone in the silvery light. Beautiful. At home, Keisha took a shower and went to bed, falling asleep with the thought that tomorrow would be a new day, a normal work day, and that was enough. The morning started with sunshine, a rarity for March. Keisha got up, brewed coffee, sat down at the table with her laptop, checked her email, replied to clients, and started a new project. At lunchtime, Maria called and invited her to the movies on the weekend. Keisha agreed. She hadn't been to the movies just for fun in a long time. In the evening, she made dinner and watched a TV series. She went to bed early. A normal day. Her day. 2 more months passed. May. Warm weather. The trees turned green. Keisha drove out to the cabin, spent the weekend there, worked in the yard, and planted flowers she bought at the market. The neighbors greeted her and asked how things were. One of the neighbors, a man in his 40s, offered to help her fix the fence. Keisha agreed. They worked together for several hours, then drank tea on the porch and talked about life. His name was Igor. He was a programmer who came to the cabin to escape the city. Divorced, no children. Keisha didn't tell him her whole story in detail, just said she was also recently divorced and lived alone. Igor nodded with understanding. Sometimes it's better to be alone than with the wrong person. Exactly. They exchanged numbers and agreed to call each other if they needed help with the yard. Keisha returned to the city on Sunday evening, tired but content. The cabin plot was coming alive. The yard was green. Soon the apple trees would blossom. Grandma loved the apple trees. She said their bloom was the most beautiful time of the year. Keisha set a reminder on her phone. Drive to the cabin at the end of May when the trees blossom. See it, photograph it, for Grandma, for myself. Life went on, quietly, calmly, without drama or upheaval, and Keisha liked it. 6 months after the divorce, she ran into Omar by chance at the mall, near the escalator. He was going up, and she was coming down. Their eyes met. Keisha recognized him immediately. He looked older, more tired, dressed carelessly, with stubble on his face. Omar recognized her too. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Keisha looked away and continued down, not stopping or looking back. Omar didn't call out to her. He just watched her go. She left the mall and got into her car. Yes, she had bought a car a month ago. A small used one, but hers. Convenient for driving to work and to the cabin. She started the engine, drove onto the road, turned on the music, and rolled down the window. The warm summer wind rushed into the car. The encounter with Omar caused no emotion, no pain, no anger, no regret. She had simply encountered an acquaintance from the past. The past remained where it belonged, behind her. Keisha drove home, thinking about her evening plans. She needed to finish a client project. Then she could read the book she had been putting off for a long time. Simple plans. Her plans. And it felt wonderful. 1 year after the divorce. Keisha marked the anniversary quietly, without fanfare. She bought herself a cake and sat on the balcony with a cup of coffee. A year ago, she stood in court and listened as the judge issued the divorce decree. Then she felt empty and cold inside. Now, she felt calm and warm. Life had settled down and found its rhythm. Work brought satisfaction and income. The condos were rented out reliably. The cabin plot had become her favorite place to relax. Igor, the cabin neighbor, had become a good friend. They called each other, sometimes worked on their lots together, and drank tea on the porch. Nothing romantic, just friendship. Keisha wasn't looking for a relationship. She didn't want one yet. Maybe someday later, maybe not. It didn't matter. The main thing was that she no longer depended on anyone, no longer waited for permission, approval, or instructions. She lived life as she wanted, for herself. Grandma knew what she was doing when she saved up for those condos. She knew that one day her granddaughter would need a foundation, a base that wouldn't let her break under outside pressure. Keisha raised her coffee cup and looked up at the sky. "Thank you, Grandma, for everything." The wind caught her words and carried them away. Somewhere up there, Grandma Lydia must have heard and smiled her quiet, wise smile. Everything had worked out exactly as she had wanted. Her granddaughter was free, and that was the most important thing. Did you like my story? If you listened till the end, drop a number 1 in the comments. If you enjoyed it, you can support me by liking the video and sending a small tip. I've got lots of other life stories like this on my channel, so make sure to subscribe and check them out. I've added 2 new stories on screen that everyone loves. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one. With love.